Hey, brothers and sisters, I wanted to give you a prophecy update provided for us by Brother Damon Duck from RaptureReady.com. America and most of the nations on earth are in a transition period between the old normal and the new world order. In America, the transition is from nationalism to globalism, from Christian values to non-Christian values, from fossil fuels to green energy, from freedom of speech to censorship, from freedom of religion to persecution, from capitalism to socialism or something similar, from a non-surveillance society to a surveillance society. According to the Bible and UN stated goals, from more than 190 sovereign nations to 10 groups of nations with a leader, king, over each one will ultimately surrender their militaries and power to the Antichrist. I believe this transition began on January 6th when the Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, went into effect, and the liberal politicians plan to complete the transition by 2030 or sooner. Time-wise, the world is almost halfway through this transition if it stays on schedule, and major changes will be necessary in the future. Every nation is not transitioning at the same speed, but every nation has the same deadline, 2030 or sooner. Concerning shortages, the high price of fuel, food, and utilities, on June 27th, Biden was at the G7 summit when French President Macron told him top oil exporting nations are at near maximum production capacity now. Saudi Arabia can increase their production some, about 150,000 barrels per day, but not nearly as much as the world needs. If this is true, and he continues to restrain production in the U.S., it is easy to believe that he is deliberately weakening the U.S. The million barrels per day he is drawing from America's preserves will eventually stop, and the availability of oil and natural gas will decrease, or people will have to come up with another source. Concerning high fuel prices on June 30th, Biden was asked how long Americans could expect to pay $5 a gallon for gasoline at the pump, and he replied, as long as it takes to get Russia out of Ukraine. Biden intends to keep blocking America's energy independence and blame it on the Russians. Continued high fuel prices mean continued high prices of everything, a worsening of global hunger, famine, and pestilence. Biden's policies make it easy for many prophecy teachers to believe that the stage is being set for world government and the tribulation period. Concerning inflation, at the G7 meeting, Biden said prices are up in every nation, and America has the strongest economy. Economic experts said this is wrong. They said inflation is less in Canada, France, Germany, and Japan than it is in the U.S. He must have lied, misspoke, or doesn't know the facts, so we can expect America's economic problems to continue. Concerning weakening America, there have been several reports that the U.S. military is having trouble recruiting troops. Their situation has reached a crisis level, and the military has lowered its standards to meet its needs. As usual, officials blame everything but the facts. They say they are having trouble recruiting young people because it's easy for them to get a job. Today's young people have a poor attitude about service. They ignore the fact that some object to being jabbed, some object to being forced gender sensitivity training, some don't want to be in the military because many officials criticize the military, some don't respect or want to serve under a mentally challenged commander-in-chief. So the once powerful U.S. military is becoming understaffed, less educated, less motivated, weaker, and less able to fight. And to make matters worse, the military is trying to discharge about 40,000 unjabbed National Guardsmen. Concerning the covenant of peace with many that will begin the tribulation period, Biden recently said, quote, "I am going to Israel on July 14th to meet with the Israelis to confirm the unbreakable bond Israel and the United States have. Part of the purpose of this trip to the Middle East on July 13th through the 16th is to deepen Israel's integration in the region, which I think I'm going to be able to do, which is good for peace and good for Israeli security. Peace and security means peace and safety. Paul says, quote, "When they, unbelievers, shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape." I don't think this will produce a covenant of peace and safety, but it is a dangerous step in that direction, especially with the political situation that exists in Israel today, a very liberal prime minister that supports the two-state solution. Concerning how Christians should respond to current events, on July 1st it was reported that Roman Catholic Archbishop Vigano urged families to resist the Build Back Better agenda and to rebuild what has been destroyed. Concerning the return of Jews to the Promised Land, it was recently reported that as of the end of May, more than 20,000 Ukrainian refugees have arrived in Israel. 36,000 others want to relocate to Israel, and this is in addition to Jews returning from other parts of the world. 10. It is common knowledge that Elon Musk, head of SpaceX, wants to put about 40,000 satellites in low orbit to provide internet service to every square inch of the planet. This will help make it possible to track all buying and selling, for everyone on earth to see the bodies of the two witnesses lying in the street in Jerusalem, and for every eye to see the return of Jesus. In the book of Revelation, we read that rebuilt Babylon will be destroyed by fire in 1 hour, and all the shipmasters, everyone on ships, and sailors will see the smoke from afar off. On June 30th, the U.S. Federal Communications granted SpaceX permission to provide satellite high-speed internet service to in-motion vehicles, ships, and aircraft, including cruise ships, commercial jets, RVs, semi-trucks, everything that moves in the air, on the water, and on the earth. Concerning a possible energy shortage this fall or winter, on June 8th, a stuck safety valve allowed too much pressure to build up in an 18-inch liquefied natural gas pipeline in Houston, Texas. The pipe burst, and it released some gas, started a fire, and the fire damaged the second largest export plant in the U.S. Plant officials want to make the repairs and restart the plant, but the Biden administration officials under Pete Buttigieg ordered the company to get an outside investigator to study the incident before they make repairs. After the study, they can make the repairs, but they must get government approval of the repairs. Who knows how long that will take? There is a concern about an energy shortage in Texas, and the Biden administration seems to be deliberately slowing the restart of this badly needed facility. Concerning the Battle of Gog and Magog, the invasion of Israel by Russia and their allies, there has been growing tension between Russia and Israel for several months because Israel has opposed Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Putin is now criticizing Israel for bombing Iranian sites, weapons, and troops in Syria. Putin now says he does not recognize Israel's annexation of the Golan Heights. He does not recognize Jerusalem as the undivided capital of Israel. For several years, the Jewish Agency in Russia has facilitated the immigration of Jews from Russia to Israel. On July 5th, it was reported that Russia has ordered the Jewish Agency to cease its activity in Russia. God is drawing the Jews back to the Promised Land, and Putin is saying he will no longer let them go. Sounds a little like the 10 plagues in Egypt. The Israeli government is preparing a response. Finally, are you rapture ready?